Welcome to the Bikeshed Podcast, where we talk about all things software engineering, our immaculate opinions, and conversations as real as an AI-generated girlfriend. I'm your co-host, UI aficionado, constant and consistent coffee consumer, and Golang gremlin, Scott Kaye. And joining me are my esteemed co-hosts, a man who's known for NPM package name squatting, the enforcer of pristine pull requests, and the most exquisite git commit messages, Matt Hamlin. And to my other side, a man you don't want to mess with because he's got a real kick to him, Dillon Spicy Take Curry. Dillon, what is our agenda today?
All right, today, Scott and Matt, we're going to be getting into code review. Not just code review. We're going to focus a bit more on how we create PRs and what makes a good PR, and then also how do we review code? What's the right way to review code? So let's get into it. Matt, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. First off, I'm freezing outside to try to record this episode because apparently it's too much echo in my office. But let's see how this goes. I kind of wanted us to talk a little bit more about how do you approach creating PRs? I think a lot of people maybe talk about reviewing, and I think we can spend some time talking about reviewing PRs, but I think really to set yourself up for success when getting PRs reviewed, you want to create a really great PR, right? You want to make it easy on the reviewers to understand the changes and be able to make decisions around those changes that are or provide good feedback, right? So I think that starts with how do you make a great PR? And I think sometimes it's what do you do before you open the PR that makes it great, right? So I'm curious, I guess before we maybe not necessarily talking about highlights, but maybe talking about the workflow a little bit, and then we can go from there and see if there's any sort of tips and tricks that you guys have to make a really good PR. Scott, I'm curious, how do you approach opening good PRs? What goes through your mind when you're do you have a mental checklist of things that you want to do when you want to open a PR, or do you have any sort of templated way that you do that? Open a PR?
Yeah, I'd love for you to get back to your ideas on what you do before you make the PR. I have ideas of what I'll do during making the PR, but I want to start contextually that when I was more of a junior engineer, I didn't really consider this as much or take how serious this can be. When you're isolated working on a problem, you just oh, here's my problem, here's the answer. But problems become more complex. Even if you're still doing something small, we need to make sure we highlight to the person who might review it has no context. How can we give them as much context as possible? What is the problem? I always actually write 2 headings these days. It's become kind of just the way 2 to 3 headings. The way I try to solve this is I give context as a heading, what is the problem here? And then I give the goal. And I say, this is what I'm going to do to solve this problem. And then I have the screenshots video section that might be relevant to what I'm working on. Depends on if it's, UI related, right? I also do a checklist. So as I'm building out this PR, I might, it might be in a draft mode, but I want to check off all the things I do to get from A to B. As well as I review the PR, I use Arc to pull up both tabs. So while I'm creating the body, I actually look at the PR and go through each file, and I note significant changes, or if it's insignificant, I might just not. But I create bullet points based off those, and then I look for anything I may have missed, whether that's I didn't pull out a comment or whatever, and I'll add those remaining problems or edge cases or gotchas as line items on my checklist so that I can go back and do it and then check it off. But I essentially try to do as much as I can to inform the person who's going to look at it. And yes, this is even at startups. I do this. This is a really good practice because it even helps me to jump right back into it. But I like to feel like I have a cohesive understanding of what I've done. I can explain it to another user. And if anyone ever needed to look at this PR for any reason, they have all of this context, and it's in good standing. Matt, I know you had a comment on this. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think like one of the earlier points you said like really resonates with me, and this is something I was thinking about within like the past week or two. You sort of called out like in your description, you highlight the problem to be solved, and then you highlight your approach or your solution. I think that's like really key. I think maybe too often, maybe I'll look at a PR and it's like, it's I'll look at a PR and it's just like a description of the solution without much context on the problem that it's solving, right? And so it's like very maybe I don't know, it's hard to dig into and understand like what were the trade-offs made. It's like okay, the person presented a solution, but I don't really know what the problem they're solving. Maybe it's solving the right problem. Maybe it's like solving a different problem, right? And it's hard to know that with just looking at the PR. So sometimes like it requires the reviewer, and I know we're kind of like getting into reviewing PRs, but it's like if you don't provide that context as part of your description, then it like makes it maybe more difficult or more work on the reviewer to like do that work to understand what it's trying to do. Yeah, Scott, I don't know if you had follow-up thoughts there.
Great point you're making. I left this out, but I do try to get as nuanced to say like, this is the solution I chose. And if there were other failed solutions or solutions that just didn't seem like they fit that problem, I note that. I try to explain why this is the one that has been decided upon, and where other ones seem to go wrong, and why we came to this conclusion, to just try to get as much out there as possible so a reviewer doesn't hit me with like, well, have you tried this or this? Let them know, we've been here, we've done that. This is why we've landed where we are, and just strengthens your argument.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out is another thing with good PRs is the scope of the PR needs to be like isolated to a single problem. I've seen this problem. I've created this problem in my PRs where I start to like change random things that have nothing to do with each other, and I've seen other people do it, and it's usually a bad practice because one, if you deploy this code and something goes wrong, you don't know where it went wrong. So if it's isolated to a specific feature, it's very obvious. I can just roll this back. It's only affecting that one thing. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, 100%. We have at HubSpot, we have like this like pretty big template that we call Brave, I think, and it's an acronym. I blanking on what it stands for, but like one of the key aspects of it is like outline what is the rollback procedure of like if you release this change, like what is it, what do you need to do in order to roll it back safely, which I think is really like a good aspect to think about when you're making a change. And like I think really that speaks to like simplifying your change or trying to do as few changes as possible, right? Because that makes it, generally speaking, makes it easier to roll back. So yeah, 100% agree with that. I think that's like a really good perspective.
I think that's really interesting. I've never heard of that. I feel like in my process though, like I try to think about how I might roll back ahead of time, and not make something complex. I feel like that should be only applicable though to like large scale changes that might require multiple downstream services to change. I don't know if necessarily every single change should be that verbose. Rather, there should be an overarching understanding of how you roll back a maybe smaller change. That's just a quick hot take on that, and maybe there within your template, it says like a standard how you would roll back a normal change. But when things are more distributed in larger systems, I can see why you start to need to know that on larger things. But just kind of going back to the principle Dillon was calling out, which we've all been there. It's very easy to work on like 10 problems at once and try to solve a whole bunch of stuff. But if you are doing things modularly and smaller, that you would need like a more defined project level way of rolling things back. But yeah, I see value in it. I'm not knocking it. It's just, it starts to argue like how simple is your product? How distributed is your product? How many layers are there in which to roll back?
Yeah. And I think or at least the way I interpret our implementation of it, is like more as a forcing function to like not try to bulk changes together. But it's also like, it's useful to recommend, or ensure that the contributor knows that process to roll those things back. So I think like, right, like if you're releasing a bug fix, but then you also include a partial new feature or something like that in it, it's like rolling back means you're not only rolling back the bug fix, but you're also rolling, or you're not rolling back the feature, you're rolling back the bug fix as well, which is kind of unfortunate. So it's like maybe that's just a forcing function to make the right choice there. We're kind of we like maybe loosely touching on it, but like templates for PRs, I think, is an interesting thought. Like we use them at HubSpot, but we don't like overly use them, in the sense of like most people go in and delete the pre-filled template and then fill it out with more things. I think my take is usually just like keep it simple, right? Like, and I personally like the like context and then details sort of template, like just two headings. Like one is context of like why is this change being made, and then the second one is like how is this change being made. But I can see like other sections being added there as well. Like one popular one that I've seen inside HubSpot so far is like alternatives considered, as like a subheading under the details, and it's like outlines like, okay, we thought about 3 different approaches for solving this problem. We picked this path, and it's like, why do we pick this path? Why were the other 2 ones ignored or not chosen? I don't know. Yeah, I think templates sometimes get overused, but yeah.
Yeah, Matt, I just wanted to touch on the templates thing. One thing I've seen at my last job and my current job is that templates sort of just fill up space because people don't really use them. I don't really use them either. I just like fill out the beginning of the description with context and everything that the PR accomplishes. And then I'll like add additional context if it's needed, depending on the complexity of the PR. So like I'll give an example of like a recent PR. I was like, it was pretty complex because I'm changing a lot of things. I'm afraid that it could potentially cause an outage. So there's like a rollout plan in the PR, but not every PR is going to have that level of description or like amount of information. Sometimes it's just a lot simpler.
Yeah, I think I think you were kind of hinting at this, and it's like, I think for large templates in PRs, I think sometimes you like, I don't know, at least as a reviewer, the more you see it, the more you're just gonna like skim past sections, just because it's like there, it's in every PR, so it's like hard to, I don't know, if I feel like that maybe makes it worse to like try to manage like what what are the details that I need to like key into when I'm reviewing a PR, which maybe we can get to a little bit later. I think Scott, like I guess like maybe sort of pivoting a little bit. Scott, you talked a little bit about potentially like kind of self-reviewing as you write your description. I'm curious, like, do you also like something I picked up in my career is like actually going through and adding comments in line on the PR myself, like on my own PR, before I like open it up for review for others. Like, curious if Scott, if you do that, or Dillon, if you do that as well.
I have some thoughts on templates, but I can get back to it if time allows. But that's a good question. Sometimes I do. Sometimes if there's like minor bugs, I'll just submit them. But it depending on what it is, I didn't call this out, but I often start to build my PR in draft mode when I do this, and then look at it and kind of try to like reason with how does it look. And then from there, I just make edits locally because it's faster. But yeah, if it's like a minor thing like spelling fix, I'll just literally fix them in the PR and just crank them out. But I tend to use my editor since it's not that much further away, and it's just preference.
Yeah, I think like the suggestions feature in GitHub was like I think a really cool feature that we got maybe a little bit later on at Wayfair, but I've used that a little bit, but I've also like found it really useful just to, like, look at my draft PR and say like, oh, like I forgot this edge case in this bit of logic, and I add a comment to it, and then I like revisit it in my editor, either right then or later, just to like kind of provide like a more, I don't know, separate workflow of like reviewing the changes itself and then going in and editing after, just to like get a comprehensive picture of it.
I guess it's just worth saying that like part of the reason I rely on my editor is like if it's a code change, I don't even want to have to think about spacing or formatting. And the code editor is always going to do that for you. So if it's more than just like a simple one line, couple character change, I tend to rely on my editor to just do auto formatting for me, and I don't have to think about it or move it around. When we get into PR reviewing, I love the suggestion feature, and we can come back to that.
You guys are gonna have to tell me what the suggestion feature is, because it's just not. I don't know what you're talking about. So, but also, I just wanted to touch on the fact that I usually get my PRs about 90% of the way done, and then I create a draft PR, and then I sort of just like work my way up to the final description. But also, I'll do like a self review of my code. I feel like seeing my code in GitHub and then like putting myself in the reviewer's shoes and going through the code. It's just easier to look at the code that way versus in my editor for whatever reason. Maybe it's just it feels like I'm reviewing it. I can like suss out a lot of issues before anyone gets to my code. Another thing that's probably going to be like a weird take is, or just a weird part of my process is, I usually don't write tests until I feel like I've found like a solid solution and gotten some feedback, like a little bit of feedback. I'm not saying this is a good idea. I'm curious. Maybe we don't have to go straight into it right now. Maybe it's like we save it. But like, how do you guys think about that?
Yeah, usually I'm not test-driven development. I'm not usually in that bucket of people. But sometimes when the feels like it's straightforward enough, usually I'll write a failing test case, commit that, and then make the change, and then like ensure that the test pass. And that way, so I can push up my PR. It's like, okay, I have a test. It was failing on one commit. I push up the fix, and then like the status on the CI is like goes green or whatever. Usually, like I don't do that for every change, right? Like that's usually like very specific or focused changes. But usually, I find it like useful to like outline the tests in a separate commit just to make it easier to understand. Like, and maybe like I don't know very many reviewers that do review commit by commit, but sometimes it can be useful to just like look at a commit of just tests and see like, okay, yeah, they understand the behavior of the expected change, and then can understand like how is the change actually implemented itself as like a separate commit. And then in terms of suggestions, it's the like comment feature. Like when you comment on a PR, you have, like sometimes like GitHub will show a little, I don't know what the icon is, but it's like, I think it's like 3 lines and a pencil maybe or something. You can click that and it creates like a markdown code fence that's like prefixed with a suggestion, and allows you to basically suggest a change in line on that comment. Maybe I'm doing poorly to describe that. I don't know, Scott, if you can describe it better than I can.
I was impressed that you knew the icon. I don't know that, but essentially you can click on a line or highlight a series of lines, and it pre-fills like what the code that's there, and then you can edit that code and give them a comment suggestion so they can easily change the code. Is what Matt's getting at.
Okay. I know this feature. I know this feature. I just didn't know what it was called.
Yeah, I do want to recap a few things. So it's like, interestingly, back to templates just quickly, is we all kind of align, and maybe I'm concluding this because we all kind of work together, but templates minimal. We all like do this context or goals/details kind of thing. We do deviate a little bit in some of the way we think about things. Dillon and I both at least use draft PRs and kind of review ourselves. Dillon said about 90% of the way. I arbitrarily probably around the same, maybe a little bit more. And tests, I think we deviate a little bit more here. I'm a little bit still with Dillon, where it's like I might add it later. It's really dependent. Matt will look for opportunities to add it first. I usually need to wrap my head around like what is the best approach. It's not often, I feel like, not as straightforward for at least the majority of the things I do most often. And if it is, I feel like it's usually trivial of a problem. And maybe at a startup, at least where I've been in the last year, a test is like, we only have so much time to make this product make money. So let's forego really, really simple tests. At a larger scale company, I might be thinking like, oh, let me just crank this test. I mean, I'm trying to put my decade of corporate time hat back on, and yeah, that sounds right. But so there's a lot of variability between who you're working for, what you're working on, what it is that needs to go out, and how fast it needs to impact things. Is it a POC? Do you need to prove viability on what you're working on? I think both you have thoughts. You can fight it out.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I think it completely depends on how, like, what pressure you're under, what is the state of the code base, what is the state of your testing framework, right? Like, if I'm working on a project that basically has no test setup or doesn't have the ability to write tests very easily, then it's like, I'm not going to spend the time in a PR that's unrelated to writing tests or adding tests to actually, put in that effort, which is maybe a little bit unfortunate, but I think it's more so like, oh, I'll revisit that in a future PR to like stand up the testing infrastructure if needed in order to like allow us to write tests more easily. Yeah, so I 100% agree. And maybe we should do an episode on testing. I think we have some interesting thoughts there. Like, Scott, you worked on a good project that like we found out, as we were working on it, like, oh, actually we need to spend time on tests first and then dig into it. But maybe we'll save that for our testing episode.
Yeah, I just wanted to add some more context to why I tend to save tests till the end. I don't actually want to do that. I'd prefer to just write my tests, but writing tests takes a long time. Like, sometimes it takes longer than writing the code. And if there's any sort of like major change that comes from feedback or something you just notice later on as you iterate, you end up needing to like rip out your tests and rewrite them sometimes. Like, if the code changes drastically, like your tests are just useless, and it's like it just feels bad at the end to just be like, oh, I just wrote all those tests for nothing, sort of. Maybe not for nothing, but it's a lot. It feels like a lot of wasted time. So I feel like I've been burned by that in the past.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the another thing that like, and maybe this is kind of like reiterating what you were saying, but it's like sometimes you're maybe unsure in the approach that you're taking, right? Like I was talking about kind of like alternative approaches in the PR. It's like, maybe you go down path A, right? And you feel good about path A. You write some tests for path A, and then the reviewer comes along, maybe it's like a staff engineer, principal engineer comes along and says, no, actually path C is better. Like, ignore path A. We should go down path C. And now you've like, maybe the way that you've written your tests is very specific to the path you've chosen. And I'm sure there's someone arguing in the stand saying, you should write tests in a way that doesn't matter with the implementation approach you take. But yeah, 100%. Like I've fallen into that trap before where it's like, I was putting a lot of effort on a specific approach, write tests for it. And then someone comes along and is like, actually, there's a better path. And it's like, okay, yeah, I agree. Like there's a better path, but now I have to like, throw away. It's like the sunk cost fallacy of testing, right? Throw away the tests I wrote and approach and go down the other path.
Yeah, this is like, I feel like my constant argument of the great it depends situation solution. Like, it is great to actually, I agree with Dillon, it's great to write tests first in some cases. At one point I wanted to make is like, often now everyone wants like tests to be written by AI. A, that's not guaranteed to be the best test, but B, that's like an after the fact thing, right? You have to like write the code. So like it's hard to do test driven development, but test driven development does make sense in some scenarios. Like sometimes you just like have no clue what the solve is, but you know the problem and you know how to replicate the problem in a test environment that can get you to the right place. And one of the great things that we all did when we worked together was when we found a bug that we didn't want it to occur again, or we were really unsure about how to get code from A to B, we would write those tests first. Those are like some scenarios where testing really like was a good strength, but you need to use it strategically. Like sometimes if you're changing the color from red to green, like sometimes like you don't need to test it. Sure, if you have a great visual regression testing framework that can test that for you, that's wonderful. But it's really situational on what you're doing. It's value to the bottom line of the application you're building or your team and the stakes that team owns in the feature or product that you're driving. Just testing everything, like Dillon says, like once you change stuff, it's just adding pain and overhead. We want to test the features. I say this actually at startups all the time, is we want to make sure we're testing the features that make us the most money or keep our product running the best, not just everything for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, I think I mean, yeah, I think we have a lot of thoughts on testing, and maybe we save some of them and revisit some of them in another episode. I think that getting a little bit back to sort of PR, maybe templates or PR description. Scott, you talked a little bit about screenshots and screen recordings. I think that's something like really like I really enjoy when I review another PR also is like a great way to contextualize the change. Something I've seen in the past, right? It's like if you have a really good preview deploy setup, talking about like, front end changes, but also back end changes. Like if you can deploy your changes in a branch and allow someone to like interact with it in the same way that we interact with production, I think that also offers a really great way to, provide more context to the reviewer. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have further thoughts on screenshots, screen recordings, preview deploys, anything like that. I think a lot of that like makes a great PR.
I agree. It adds visual polish, and for people who are visual learners, will be able to like catch on faster. There are a few methods that I like. A lot of people use just like a traditional Mac screenshots because we all use Macs. But like Mac screen recordings can be great. I try to, if I'm doing something that interacts with multiple elements, use videos if I can. And another great feature, which with some UI can be buggy, is capture full size screenshot within your dev tools. A lot of people don't know about this or use it, but like the screenshotting in your dev tools is super powerful. I highly recommend it.
For the longest time, I was using Dropbox Capture. This is like completely tangent, but Dropbox Capture was really great. It allowed you to take like screenshots and screen recordings, and then it immediately copied it into your clipboard. So you can just like capture the screen, capture whatever, and then just directly go to your PR and paste it in without needing to like muck about and whatnot. But it also like saved the files. Unfortunately, they're like end of lifing Dropbox Capture like this month. And so I had to come up with a replacement. But yeah, well, maybe I'll drop a link into that replacement in in the show notes.
I just need you guys to add, or I need Scott to add these like DevTool screenshots to the show notes as well, because I don't know what he's talking about once again. Scott, can you give me a quick rundown of how that works? Does that help with things like when you're screenshotting a UI and you like open a menu and you go to use the Mac screenshot, the menu closes. Like, does it help with that sort of thing? Can you handle that with like the Chrome DevTools screenshots? Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about because JavaScript, like when you click outside something, it might close a menu.
Yeah, the only way I can figure out how to solve that is like use a debugger statement to like lock the JavaScript at that point.
That's a case where I would use the video, to be honest with you, though, because like if you're trying to show that, you can literally screenshot the video and you don't have to do all your debugging techniques. I've done the same stuff, drop the debugger or just turn the JavaScript off so you could take the picture. But in reality, I think that's a perfect example for a video. I don't think, though, necessarily this would solve it using like the full capture in Chrome DevTools because you still have to click outside. However, I'm not sure that if you use Command-Shift-5, which gets you a video by default, but if you set it up, you can set it up to take a photo. So you might be able to do it that way. I maybe not, but yes, there are just like more tools for you to be a little bit more savvy when you're taking your screenshots.
Yeah, like let's say you have some JavaScript running and you want to kind of pause it at an interaction or to take a screenshot or whatever. What I've done in the past is I think it's function F8, at least on a Mac, will like pause JavaScript execution wherever it is. So it's like basically an instant debugger wherever JavaScript's executing currently, and that way you can like then take a screenshot or whatnot. So yeah, I've used that in the past also. But yeah, I think what Scott's saying also, it's like a screen recording, especially for things maybe like deeply embedded. Like sometimes you want to capture the journey that a customer's going to go through until they hit the part you changed. Screen recording, I think, is great, right? It's like a really great way to like provide a guided tour to the reviewer of like here's what the change does.
Yeah, I'll add that like anything that has user interactivity, it typically should just be a video.
Well said, Matt. Just like connecting the dots of like how you get to this feature, how the interactivity of the feature occurs for a customer just puts a lot of perspective in the mind of someone reviewing it. Or even if you write a good enough video recording a good enough video, you can just kind of show that to the team. You can drop it in Slack. You can show progress to people who aren't technical. It's a great way to get some buzz around what you're building.
Yeah, this is like a little bit tangent from PR reviews, but HubSpot has a really strong Loom culture. Like we use Loom, the software that allows you to like record screen videos and share it. and it's like used for a ton of things internally. It's like someone will be like, oh, I figured out this way to use cursor to do X. And they just like drop a screen recording with them talking to their computer, and like everyone like watches it and reacts to it. It's like, I don't know. I haven't seen other company cultures that are similar in the same regard. But anyway, I think screen recording is like, if a photo says 1,000 things or whatever, a screen, like a video says a lot more. Um, so we've talked quite a bit about, how do you craft a good PR? I think it might be worth then like maybe pivoting to like kind of our second topic here of like, how do you guys review PRs, right? Like, what is the process you follow? Yeah, I think we could talk about a lot of different things here. I don't know if anyone wants to like kick us off with any specific approach that you follow or technique that you use or whatnot.
Can start us off. I mean, the first thing I do when I see a PR is just try to understand the breadth of what problem it's trying to solve. And for like UI changes, if there's like going back to what we were just talking about, if there's videos, great. Like I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna watch those videos. If there's preview deploys, I'm gonna go to the preview deploy and like try to go through the flow of what they actually changed in the first place. That's not always the case for like backend changes. It's a lot harder to sort of have that workflow when you're reviewing code. So I just tend to like sift through the review, try to see the major changes and what it's trying to accomplish, ignoring any sort of like minor issues, maybe saving some of those for the very like end or the second pass is what I would call it. Yeah, that's kind of how I would start. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, so I think talking about how we create PRs is very much informed by how we reviewed PRs. Like a lot of what I'm going to say is the inverse of why I make the PR the way I make it. Because the first thing I do is I look at a PR and I try to read the context and get some idea. Preview deploy, great point. Like maybe you don't need a video, but like if there's a video or an image, I'm going to look at it and then I'm going to start reading from that point. I know we usually put that at the bottom, but like it's great to see it and try to read it. So I want to get all the context I can to understand how they're solving a problem. Because I don't want to just look at their code and be like, have you tried X, Y, and Z? I want to see what they told me they have tried, why they took that path that they've taken. This helps inform how I look at the code after I look at it and what to look for. It's a lot harder. And this happens to starters too, someone just slaps a PR up, the title's not good, there's no details, and you look at it and you're trying to formulate an opinion on how they tackled it. You might formulate nothing, you might formulate 1,000,000, and then now you're having a conversation with the person and you're just like wasting time. They went through this and they just didn't note it. Like if you can just say as much as possible in that PR, you can inform how I can make decisions on solving it, or how I can even help you with thoughts you might not have had.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of a good insight. I think the way I like sort of giving it maybe 30 seconds of thought, I haven't necessarily sort of extended this thinking further than that, but the way I would categorize the way I review PRs is maybe a little bit of like a what, why, how sort of approach, right? Like, what is this change from a 30,000 foot view? Like, what is this change doing? Why is this change the change it is? Like, why are we making this change? Like that stuff, and then digging into the how, right? Which I think is basically the same thing you were saying, Scott, where it's like you review the artifact, right? Like you review like the visual aspect or whatever it is in order to understand the change, and then look at the description, and then dig into the implementation. Something, and I, maybe not necessarily for us to dig all the way back into it, but I think on the preview deploy aspect, something I've actually found where it's like that can sometimes not be as great as a screen recording or a screenshot is that it's up to the reviewer now to track down where this change happens in the application that's been deployed, right? So sometimes it's like, oh, there's just a link to a preview. I need to like go through the application and find the place where your change was made, and like maybe as the reviewer, you might not know all the places that change is like going to be impacted, and so like screen recordings, I think, just adds to the context for a reviewer. One thing, and this is maybe like a little bit of a tangent or a different path down, something in the past that us three have done is what I like to call like live reviews and pairing reviews. Sometimes like if a change is really gnarly and like hard for me to understand, then I'll just like Slack someone, Slack the person that opened the PR and said, hey, do you want to hop on a quick huddle, like, and walk through this change and talk about it, right? Like, help me understand the change, why we made the change. That provides a faster feedback loop of me reviewing the changes. Also, it's like, I don't want to add a comment, wait a day for the original author to like come back and reply to it, and then wait another day for like me to reply and whatnot. Doing a live review or a peer review, I think, is really useful. I don't know if that's going to be clear to everyone listening to the episode.
This is yet another tangent off of what your tangent was, but I think that's sort of makes me think of pair programming and how pair programming can basically add the reviewing process to the like implementation process. So it's almost like you have someone helping review the code as you write the code. Matt's got like some nods, but I'm not sure that he agrees with me. So
I'm like nodding as if I'm like trying to understand what you're saying in the same regard. It sounded like, so yeah, I guess like you're saying that pair programming can help lead into a better review process. Is that right?
I feel like pair programming sort of mixes development and review at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that like resonates with me also. It's like you're getting even earlier feedback from a potential reviewer as you're working on it.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Dillon. You're getting like empathy up front about the problem you're solving. So like the reviewer is going through any pain or at least the motions that you have to go through to solve the problem. So like empathetically, the reviewer is like has more context and understands like why you might get to a specific place. The reviewer might also push you and nudge you and give you a little bit of influence, which will help like make it easier for it to pass code review. But those things help because everyone is now like on the same page and they're agreeing like this is the problem and this is like an approach, maybe not a prescriptive code approach, but rather like a prescriptive way to tackle it. Like we want to get to a specific result based on that. And then how you get there can be, again, empathetically like followed from both parties. So you essentially see eye to eye with your reviewer. It does help, especially like when we had large, big scale changes, working on those and seeing that through. It works really well because you're on the same page, you're working together, and it's almost like it's pair programming and reviewing, but it's also like basically working on the problem together. So you build trust and confidence.
Pair programming and like live reviews is really great, but it does require that two people basically dedicate their time to the problem together. And the whole point of PRs is that they can be like asynchronously reviewed. So I think this is all leading back to like the positives we're seeing from pair programming and live reviews can be solved by a really good PR description. To give all that context that you would give when you're talking to somebody face to face. You should try to like think about it, writing your description in terms of like I'm talking to a person. What should I tell them to let them know everything I'm trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, I really like that framing. This is like maybe also yet another tangent, but something I've like, I've been on teams in the past where we actually considered the possibility of like if every PR has been paired on or swarmed on by the team, like do we even need code review? Like can we just like yeet that into production? It's an interesting question, more of like a meta note. I think it's like code review, like and like maybe like kind of related to that, right? If you pair on a problem with someone else, like it sometimes like okay, it could be useful for them to also review it, but like you guys both have the context of the problem. Sometimes you actually want to find a different person to review it in order to like get a different perspective. And so I think pairing, it's like doesn't necessarily completely remove the need for code review, I think, in all cases, but sometimes it could be it provides an even better experience for the reviewer. I guess that's like the thought I was leading to there.
I agree with what you're saying. Again, both of you. I'm going to say it depends. I wasn't going to say that, but there's a balance, right? Like it is good for teams to like build relationships and trust and work on these things together, especially when skill sets could be different. So it could help grow people and their abilities. And again, cultivate more morale for the team. But it also, like, we don't want to go too far down one end where everything we're doing is now pairing and it's slowing us down. So there's fine lines between the two.
Yeah, as you were talking, I had like another thought come to mind about code review. This is like maybe kind of on the ancillary aspects and not necessarily about how I review code. Something that's been highly encouraged at, on my team at HubSpot and I think maybe other teams as well, is like using code review as an opportunity to onboard and like learn about the team, learn about the changes, learn about whatever. I think it's an interesting aspect. I think I'm maybe like I can see like benefits and like problems with that approach. But it's like code review is more than just ensuring that the code is correct, right? It's like I think there's deeper aspects to it that are provide benefit to a team.
Yeah, I had a point that kind of spins off of what you're talking about, Matt, where like an example of like my own code review is I tend to want to like give the PR to somebody I know has experience in that area and is going to be able to like have a quick turnaround time on the review. But that's not actually like good for knowledge sharing within the team as a whole. So it's like a balance of like, sure, I can get the person that's going to give me the best comments, but I also need to like help my team learn what is going on in different parts of the system that they don't typically work in.
100% agree. I think it's like, sometimes totally there's times where it's like, oh, I just need to get this code change out. So I'll just ping it to the person that knows the most about it, is going to review it the fastest. But there's other times where it's like, it would be great to get this change out, but it's like also useful just to throw it to anyone to review it and then hopefully let, try to encourage people on the team that we're on to like review, review changes that they don't know that much about in order to learn more about it. Does everyone have spicy takes for the spicy take segment? Take? I think my spicy take, if we were to have spicy takes, would probably be that code review. You maybe don't need it. There's the spicy take. Yeah. I don't think every situation requires code review.
Mild. I work at a company where maybe 50 to 75% of things don't get code reviewed, so it's mild. If it was a corporation you're talking about.
HubSpot for a long time didn't require actually someone stamping a PR. Like we didn't like, I don't know if this is gonna get us in trouble, but we didn't require someone approving a PR before it being merged. But now we do. So
what do you mean us?
Us as
I'm not gonna
as in HubSpot.
I feel like that's like a Diablo take, which is the top of the scale of our take spicy take scale. I don't know what it is. Whatever. Because I mean it really does depend, right, Scott? Because if you're on a team with two people and like you need to move quickly and maybe you have two customers, like you just yeet it, as Matt would say. But if you have 1 million customers or more, I would say like you should probably get some reviews, maybe 1 to 2. Like where I work, like 2 is required in specific repos, and then other repos it's only 1. So it sort of depends. Now that Scott's put this word in my head, I'm just using it over and over. But yeah.
It does depend. Honestly, I think 2 is like almost absurd unless like one team's working on a problem and they just don't know what they're doing. The hot take right there, I guess. You should almost never have to do 2 code reviews. Is that spicy? I feel like that's not even mild. It's lukewarm. It's like, it's a cold take.
It's the white bread.
My take is that all code should be able to be written by speaking.
Oh, that's a very lukewarm take, in my opinion. We're very it's like I don't know. That's the trend right now.
On the scale. I just said it.
Okay, it's off the scale. It's so far cold that it's not even present on the scale.
Why are you so hostile towards my spicy takes?
It's not that spicy of a take.
Dillon, come on, help me out.
Scott, I wasn't listening. Can you give me your take again?
We're gonna move
That's
on to.
so rude.
I'm gonna make up another spicy
Just
take
boot me
here.
from the call after that. But yeah.
TypeScript is overrated.
What about Go is overrated? That's a spicy take.
How is it spicy?
Oh, because maybe it's not. Maybe it's underrated.
I just don't know why all
Are
my
we just
takes are
trying to
lukewarm, not even on
one
the
up each other on
scale.
what is the spiciest take?
I think Matt's just mad that he hasn't won 2 takes and a fake yet. Actually, I think he won last week. I don't know what the score is. It's made up, and the points don't matter.
All right. Do we want to close this out with what's up with you? Like what's something new that you guys have been looking at or thinking about? Could be tech related, could be unrelated to tech. Dillon, do you have anything that's new?
This is a stand-up update. At work, I was looking into something called like embargoed assets in Contentful. It's basically a way to like have like your CDN assets be secured so that only specific users can see them. So that was like digging into that and writing up a tech plan and trying to estimate how long it would take, even though I've never built anything like this. But it requires like spinning up a new service that authorizes, like making sure the user's authorized and reaches out to Contentful to make sure that like it's just a lot. It's a lot for a front end developer. It feels like a back end thing. That was a terrible thing to add.
Well, I was just gonna say, like you were talking before we started recording about your new coffee beans or coffee that you've been trying. I figured you were gonna talk about that. I guess not though.
I should have. That would have been a lot more interesting. I just like put everyone to sleep. So I'm sorry. I should have given you caffeine instead.
Yeah, so code-wise, recently, I learned about, I guess, for the first time, I used the canvas tag. I learned about animating on scroll videos and pictures in React and in vanilla JavaScript. You can go to tollbit.com and check out the hero image. It kind of animates on scroll. It was pretty cool. I learned about PNGs versus WebP files, and I have to remind myself right now to install that command line tool in my dot files. Hold on, I'm writing that down. Okay, so what I did here is I was originally going to do this all in CSS, and I started it that way. We want to animate and make something look 3D. I got really excited, and I started doing it in CSS. I almost did everything but, well, I did everything but the three-dimensional transforms, which was what I was about to solve. And then I was told, stop. Here's a video, animate this video. And I kind of learned that in JavaScript, you can get 60 FPS easily in the browser, but with React, you can't because it's a virtual DOM. And you know, I took every approach. I didn't use states. I used Matt doesn't agree. I used refs. I tried some things. WebP or WebM. WebP is pictures. So I learned about both WebM and WebP. So that's fair to clarify. So I started with video. The video didn't like this is kind of copying like what Apple does, but they don't actually make the video a video specifically play when you scroll. React can't really handle that level of loading. But what they'll do is they'll do like a CSS transition and then they'll play the video on scroll. So that's kind of the technique they'll use. If they want to make it like a video that does happen on scroll, they use pictures. So I went over and I changed everything to pictures, but that looked great at like 1x PNGs, but when we 2x them to optimize, it was very stuttery. So the way I solved this, to get full circle to my point about the canvas tag, is I use the canvas tag instead of images because Canvas bypasses React's need to re-render, so it allows you to update more frequently faster, and we got a more smooth transition out of it. So that was a really, really cool project. I had never done it before. I created a reusable component that does this, and I'm going to be putting that into my private but public UI solution that I have yet to. I've told most people about, but I'm not going to talk about it publicly here. And that was really fun. Matt, what's up with you?
That's really cool, Scott. Yeah, so my stand-up update today is or this week is I've been digging into CSP, which is content security policy. A lot of fun. Hint, it's not actually a lot of fun. And yeah, we have a very lax CSP setting right now across basically all of our websites. And so we're trying to figure out how do we actually go from being very lax to very strict or enforced. In CSP, it's like all or nothing. You have to specify everything that you're planning to load, that you need to load in order to allow it to work on the page. So that's my stand-up update. Yeah, CSP is a pain, exactly, Scott. Separate from that, like I've been digging into durable objects on Cloudflare, which is kind of interesting. I still don't know what they are, but hopefully I figured that out.
Do you know why you're looking into them?
They allow you to persist state, kind of like a database, but they can be spun up and spun down really easily, apparently, and it's very cost effective, maybe. Anyway, I paid Cloudflare $5 last night so I could start testing them out. So we'll see if I actually end up needing them or not.
Yeah, I think I'm proposing to call this segment "What's Stand Up with You," and Dillon also just kind of like, I think he tossed out a name, but I think we should just have stand up in the parking lot as this rant time that we have post. What's stand up with you?
Yeah, I just feel like the reason I said stand up in the parking lot is because this is like the very end of the episode, and then we're giving our stand up update. And usually you do your parking lots at the end of stand up for anyone that does that.
Perfect. All right. Do we want to call it there? I think that covers our topic for the day. Thanks everyone for joining and talking about it. Like and subscribe, share it with a friend. Scott, what do you got?
I was just going to say what you said, bikeshedpod.com. Like and subscribe. Peace.
Peace out.